Designed and first built by McDonnell Douglas, and now by Boeing, the F-15 Eagle is the United States Air Force's most important air superiority fighter. First deployed in 1972, it is expected to stay in active service until 2025, easily making it the longest-serving fighter in the history of the U.S. Air Force. In the mid-1960s, the U.S. Air Force was disagreeably surprised to learn that the Soviet Union was developing a number of advanced warplanes that could threaten the air superiority of the U.S. Air Force. The new Soviet types included supersonic attack aircraft and bombers with the range to deliver nuclear weapons to the continental United States. Particularly menacing was a new fighter, the Mikoyan-Gurevich or MiG-25. Codenamed Foxbat by NATO planners, the MiG-25 was optimized for the interceptor role over the European battlefield, with a primary armament of air-to-air missiles. Targeting data was provided by a powerful radar, and in performance terms, the MiG-25 was expected to exceed that of existing American fighters. At the time, the Air Force's primary air superiority fighter was the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, a superb warplane by the standards of its day. The Phantom's performance, however, was inferior to that of the Foxbat. It was limited to engagements in which the target had to be first identified visually. The Phantom's F-4E variant had a combat radius of about 500 miles in its air defense role. What the U.S. Air Force now needed was a longer-range fighter, capable of outperforming the MiG-25. The proposed F-15A Eagle would offer a radius of 1,220 miles and a significantly improved performance. The F-4E carried Sidewinder and Sparrow missiles for its air-to-air role. Speed and range was degraded by the need to carry much of its vital electronic warfare equipment externally. The aircraft had only a relatively small and short-range radar, without the power to burn through an enemy's jamming equipment. In the European theater, the MiG-25 offered the Soviet air arm a combat radius of about 700 miles. This compared to the 500-mile radius of the F-4 and the 1,220-mile radius of the planned F-15. 4 companies submitted proposals for the new fighter. Following the definition phase on December 23, 1969, the U.S. Air Force announced the selection of McDonnell Douglas as the prime contractor. The Eagle's initial versions were the F-15A single-seater and the TF-15A two-seater. The latter was soon redesignated as the F-15B, as it was fully combat capable. These versions were powered by a pair of new Pratt & Whitney F-100 turbofan engines for a combat thrust-to-weight ratio greater than 1:1. The fixed wing was fitted onto a wide, flat fuselage that also provided an effective lifting surface. The first F-15A flew on July 27, 1972, with the first flight of the F-15B following in July 1973. The F-15 had a so-called look-down, shoot-down radar, which can distinguish low-flying moving targets from ground clutter. The U.S. Air Force introduced the F-15 into service on January 9, 1976. The F-15 was initially designed to fire the short-range Sidewinder air-to-air missile and retain the same conformal carriage of 4 Sparrow medium-range missiles as on the Phantom. Armament was a single 20mm M61 Vulcan gun. The tricycle landing gear on the Eagle, with a single wheel on each unit, is lowered rearward. Both nose and main gear incorporate shock absorbers, carbon heat sink brakes, and a wheel braking skid control system. From dead ahead, the F-15 has a sleek overall appearance, with the two vertical fins giving it a height of 18 feet 6 inches. The fairing on the tip of the starboard tail fin is the electronic countermeasures equipment, while that on the port fin is for the radar warning receiver. The cockpit's location, high over the forward fuselage, gives excellent all-round vision, even in this dual-seat F-15D model. Good ground clearance is provided by the tricycle landing gear, located below the 63 feet 9 inch overall length of the aircraft. The large diameter radome for the powerful APG-63 radar dominates the nose of the airplane. The radome is of the dielectric type and therefore transparent to the radar's electromagnetic emissions and associated returns. On each side of the fuselage are the massive inlets, through which air is drawn, for the side-by-side pair of F-100 turbofan engines. The engine inlet's leading edges are strongly raked in side elevation. The engine trunks on each flank of the aircraft are huge. The size of the shoulder-set wing is also big, spanning 42 feet 10 inches. It has an area of 608 square feet. The tail unit is carried by structural beams outside the engines and includes large and powerful all-moving dog-tooth aileron units. The tail view is dominated by the variable nozzles for the two afterburning engines. This aircraft has long-range fuel tanks below the wings. The fuel tank pylons each carry a pair of weapon stations. On each engine trunk are the pair of tangential missile stations for medium-range air-to-air missiles. In the leading edge of the starboard wing root is the muzzle port for the M61 cannon.
We've always had the gun on the F-15. It's right over my right shoulder, and it's a 20 millimeter cannon, effective out to about a mile, and it carries 940 rounds of 20 millimeter. And we can have tracer in there, high explosive incendiary or armor piercing rounds. And the cannon fires at a rate of 100 rounds a second. So it's so rapid that you don't hear the individual reports of each bullet going off. It sounds almost more like a vacuum cleaner or a drill.
The first and numerically most important operator the Eagle was, and still is, the United States Air Force. The first Eagle, an F-15B two-seater, was delivered in November 1974. It entered combat squadron service with the 555th Tactical Fighter Squadron in January 1976, carrying the Hughes aircraft, now Raytheon, APG-63 radar. With its two powerful engines, the F-15 could take off rapidly and then pull almost immediately into a vertical climb, although a standard climb gave a quicker arrival at the desired altitude. Internal fuel gave a considerable range in its own right, but additional range could be provided by up to 3 drop tanks, 1 under the fuselage and 2 under the wings. With the drop tanks discarded, the F-15A and B possessed very good outright performance, including a maximum speed of Mach 2.5 in combination with excellent agility. Operating from the hardened aircraft shelters located at American Air Force bases in Europe and Asia, the Eagle began to provide a highly effective shield for the military assets of the United States and those of its local allies. Production of the Eagle for the U.S. Air Force initially comprised the F-15A and B models. Manufacture of the F-15A reached 384 aircraft, delivered between 1972 and 1979. Over the same period, 61 F-15Bs were built. These were followed by the delivery of the F-15C and F-15D. 483 F-15Cs and 92 F-15Ds were built. The single-seat F-15C and the two-seat F-15D were put into production in 1978. They were first flown in February 1978 and in June of 1978, respectively. The upgraded F-15C and D had the Production Eagle package, PEP 2000, improvements. These included an increased fuel capacity of 2,000 pounds or 1,464 gallons of additional fuel and exterior conformal fuel tanks. A programmable signal processor for the APG-63 radar was added. The last 43 machines carried the APG-70 radar with built-in programmable signal processor, synthetic aperture ground mapping, and track-while-scan capability. Other modifications to the F-15C and D were improved avionics and electronic warfare systems and software upgrades, allowing an expansion of the maneuver envelope from 7.33G to 9G. Changes were also made to the landing gear to allow for an increase in maximum takeoff weight of up to 68,000 pounds, as well as additional hardpoints for external weapons. The first F-15Cs and Ds retained the A's power plant of two F-100 P-100 engines, each rated at 2,830 pounds static thrust with afterburning. But these were soon replaced by the slightly less powerful F-100 P-220 engine, rated at 23,340 pounds static thrust with afterburning. This was fitted with full authority digital electronic control system for considerably greater flexibility of operation. Since the early 1990s, a number of F-15Cs and Ds have been upgraded with the new F-100 P-229 engine, rated at 29,100 pounds of static thrust with afterburning. The F-15 was later acquired and operated in its four initial variants by the Air Forces of Israel, Japan, and Saudi Arabia. Israel has operated the F-15 since 1977, and its airplanes are currently organized as two squadrons with the F-15 A and B and one squadron with the F-15 C and D. The first 25 F-15 A and Bs were early U.S. Air Force production aircraft. In the Israel-Lebanon border disputes between 1979 and 1982, Israeli F-15 shot down 56 Syrian Air Force warplanes. Japan acquired 203 F-15Js and 20 F-15DJs starting in 1981. Two of the F-15Js and 12 DJs were built in the U.S., with the balance built under license by Mitsubishi in Japan. The Japanese operate these aircraft in 6 squadrons, and in June 2007, decided to upgrade certain F-15 aircraft with synthetic aperture radar pods to replace RF-4 reconnaissance aircraft currently in service. Saudi Arabia has operated 4 Eagle squadrons with 55 F-15C and 19 F-15D airplanes since 1981. Between 1984 and 1991, Saudi Arabian F-15 pilots destroyed 2 Iranian Phantoms and 2 Iraqi Mirage F-1 fighters. The U.S. Air Force deployed F-15C and D models to the Persian Gulf in 1991 in support of Operation Desert Storm. These planes accounted for 36 of the 39 air-to-air combat victories won by American pilots. The F-15Cs had 34 confirmed kills of Iraqi aircraft during the 1991 Gulf War, mostly by air-to-air missiles. Over half of all the F-15's kills have been made by Israeli Air Force pilots. Currently, no Eagle of the air superiority types F-15A, B, C, or D has ever been shot down by opposing forces. After combat operations, and even during peacetime exercises, the fighter pilot needs, of course, to return to base. Years ago, NATO planners realized that these bases could come under attack from Warsaw Pact forces. They therefore started a program to harden hangars and other vital buildings against possible attack. It was also considered highly likely that an enemy might use nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons, and therefore these hardened structures had to be capable of operating even when contamination or nuclear fallout was present. F-15 ground crews in Europe therefore regularly practiced servicing and turning around their aircraft under such conditions. The skills of Air Force pilots in air-to-air combat are honed by tactical exercises against aggressor units. These units fly aircraft that are basically dissimilar to the Air Force's standard types, most notably the Northrop F-5E Tiger II. This is a light and highly agile warplane with Mach 1.5 performance and has much in common with the Soviet MiG-21. The experienced aggressor crews mimic the tactics and thinking employed by potential enemies.
This is the pre-deployment brief for this weekend's trip down to Luke. We're going to be taking 6 airplanes down on Sunday. The requirements to become an aggressor are a minimum of 500 hours of fighter pilot time. However, the average in the aggressor business is 1,700 hours of fighter time. I think that any of the guys in the aggressor business could serve as models for how to be a good fighter pilot. I think it's pronounced, and we see it a great deal, that winning attitude that the aggressors can get across to a younger fighter pilot. And that is as important as any other single factor. Is you must be prepared and you must be ready to seize the offensive at the earliest opportunity.
Comrades, I'm Captain Russ Strong of the 565th Fighter Aviation Regiment, just located outside of Vladivostok in eastern Russia.
We have what we call core briefings that we present at each location that we go to, specifically on the man and his machine, the Soviet or the adversary counterpart, what his lifestyle is like, what his background is, what his motivations are. By doing that, we hope that the U.S. pilot will understand the thought processes and what he's facing as the guy in the other machine. We believe it's the man in the machine and not the machine that wins the battle.
In their nimble Tiger IIs, the aggressor squadron takes off to teach the Eagle pilots air combat against warplanes using enemy tactics.
Ready?
Contact target.
Your guidance post. Fight on, Dan, 145, 26. All right, tally visual. Eagle 2, tally 1.
Eagle 1, tally 1 visual. Where's the other one?
All right, you don't even see Eagle 2, tally 1, I just passed. No droid yet. Gun stacking, kill. Eagle straight up.
2, right up and right for guns. Bandit, you're 6, 2,000 feet.
Are you going to gun fight? Yeah, I do. Okay, I'm right behind you.
Eagle 1, check 6. The other bandit coming in from the south.
1, break down and left. Bandit, you're 6. Eagle 2, engaging the F-5, coming off Eagle 1. Snapshot, F-5, right-hand turn.
Roger, Eagle 1, knock it off.
Eagle 2, knock it off.
GCI copies, knock it off.
With the first half of the exercise complete, the aggressors hold a thorough debrief to assess the mission's successes and failures.
Okay, so we get 1 Fox 1. Still no tally-ho, though, so it's good pure pursuit on your part. No joy on either of ours right now.
After the F-15 pilots have had time to digest the implications of these conclusions, the second half of the tactical exercise is flown.
Eagle 1 Bandit 010, 10 miles southbound.
The aircraft itself, every time we go out on a training mission, has no idea that it's a training mission. It thinks, and all the displays look like it would in combat. When you hit the pickle button or the fire button, the computer thinks it's in combat and generates a fire signal and sends all the information like it typically would to its missiles. The pilot sees all the normal displays. The only thing that's different is a missile actually doesn't come off the airplane.
Okay, 2 sights going up, and I'm going for gun. Snapshot, F5, right turn. 2, come off the left.
The radar missile systems are out at longer range. As you get into closer range, you'd like to have the opportunity to shoot the heat-seeking missiles. They have a better minimum range. That is a range that the weapon will go off and fuse on another aircraft. If you have to think about it, about the 13 different switches you have and the combination to have a weapon come off, it's usually too late. It means either success or failure of that particular engagement. So you want to get that down to just muscle memory. You don't think about it, you want a missile to come off, and it happens, and your fingers are moving without you even realizing it.
Though a capable warplane in its own right, the Eagle is best operated in the air superiority role in conjunction with the Boeing E-3 Sentry. This is the AWACS, or Airborne Warning and Control System, of the U.S. Air Force, which operates 36 of these warplanes. The NATO alliance has 18 of these machines, with smaller numbers flown by France, Great Britain, and Saudi Arabia. The cabin is outfitted with consoles for a tactical crew of between 13 and 19 personnel. The Sentry is based on the civilian Boeing Model 707 airliner and is most notable for the rotodome above the fuselage. This houses the antenna of the APY-1 or 2 surveillance radar. The radar has a range of 400 miles against targets at medium and high altitudes. Against low-altitude targets, the range is 250 miles. The Sentry can cruise at 29,000 feet for more than 6 hours without in-flight refueling. The crew constantly monitors the volume of aircraft around it for possible threats. Several hundred potential threats can be detected and tracked at the same time. The Sentry operates in conjunction with friendly fighter assets. All NATO fighters carry an IFF, Identification Friend or Foe transponder, which emits a signal to the AWACS, identifying the transmitting aircraft. When an unidentified aircraft is detected, the crew vectors in the fighters for an interception. Because of its ability, the Sentry is known as a force multiplier. The well-proven handling characteristics of the F-15 made the type ideal for use in a number of research roles. One of these was the F-15 SMTD, Short Takeoff and Landing Maneuver Technology Demonstrator, which was created by converting the first F-15B to a technology testbed. This aircraft was used to study the effects of vectored thrust and enhanced agility. The focus of the program was to examine a high-technology method of operating from wet runways and also from runways where the takeoff or landing distance had been reduced by bomb craters. The airplane drew on the advantages offered by canard foreplanes, reversible thrust engine, and jet nozzles that could be deflected by 20 degrees. Canard foreplanes and nozzles with pitch vectoring and reverse thrust capability were installed on the F-15B in 1988. After acquiring this machine in 1993, NASA replaced the original engines with F-100 229 units, fitted with nozzles that could be vectored in yaw as well as pitch. The F-15 SMTD provided very impressive results. These included a 25% reduction in takeoff roll, landing at a mere 1,650 feet, compared with the 7,500 feet of the standard F-15. They also provided rapid in-flight deceleration by the use of thrust reversal and controlled flight at angles of attack up to about 85 degrees without vertical tail surfaces. The F-15 possesses good range capability, but this can be radically enhanced by the use of in-flight refueling. One of the U.S. Air Force's tankers is the KC-10 extender, derived from the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 airliner. The Air Force received 60 extenders from 1981 onwards.
Air refueling is a kind of a skill set in itself. It's unnatural to fly within feet of a large airframe and have them connect a boom to your airplane and pass a large quantity of fuel to you. So you need to be kind of relaxed as you're flying in there, and you're staying within a very tight volume of where that fuel can be passed to you in that boom. So it's critical out over the ocean or even during combat to extend your combat operations, to get the gas, get it quickly, get off the boom, and get the next receiver on, because you've got probably 8-10 other airplanes waiting in line to get the fuel, and if you don't get it, you're not going to be able to do the combat mission that you anticipated.
Although the first 4 Eagle variants, the F-15A, B, C, and D, were intended for the air superiority role, they were completed as air-to-air and air-to-surface warplanes, with the wiring and hardpoints for a wide range of air-to-surface weapons. McDonnell Douglas privately adapted the second F-15B as the Strike Eagle demonstrator, with the rear seater serving as the weapon system operator. This proved very successful, and the U.S. Air Force decided to order a fully optimized variant as the F-15E Strike Eagle. The first Strike Eagle flew on December 11, 1986, and 209 aircraft were delivered before the main production program ended in July 1994. The Air Force later placed an order for a further 12 attrition replacements. Further attrition replacements eventually raised the Air Force's total to 237 machines, and these were all delivered by 2001. As noted earlier, the combat radius of the F-15A in the air-to-air combat role is 1,220 miles. Carrying a much greater warload, and with fuel in conformal fuel tanks, the F-15E still has the very credible radius of 790 miles. The Strike Eagle's external weapons load of 24,500 pounds includes all the weapons already qualified for the F-15 series, as well as laser-guided bombs, the AGM-65 Maverick air-to-surface missile, and the AGM-88 HARM missile. The F-15E carried the Lantern Podded Navigational Attack System. The starboard pod is the navigational unit. It is comprised of a terrain-following radar and a FLIR, or forward-looking infrared sensor, with a wide vision angle. This enables the pilot to fly, even on the darkest of nights, at low level with total confidence.
Yeah, you know, night flying is one of our cornerstone functional areas, and we like it so much is for a number of reasons. One, the F-15 is a big airplane, and it's easy to be seen on a day mission with no clouds. And so one of the precepts of a fighter pilot is lose sight, lose the fight. Well, if you never got sight to begin with, you're certainly not going to win in that particular case. So we like to fight at night, and primarily because it masks our size, but also we have the information display systems to optimize fighting in those conditions, and it's an advantage that the F-15 has that other aircraft do not have. So we think that we have an advantage. We like flying at night usually, and we like to conduct our wars at night because there's a lot of confusion on the enemy's part anticipated during the night hours.
The port, or targeting pod, comprises another FLIR, with stabilized optics providing wide and narrow-angle fields of vision. It also has a laser rangefinder and designator and a tracking system that marks the target to be engaged from a distance as great as 10 miles. Once tracking has been started, targeting information is automatically handed off to either an infrared-guided air-to-surface missiles or laser-guided bombs. The targeting pod is mounted beneath the left engine inlet and can now comprise, as alternatives to the original AN/AAQ-14 target pod, the Lightning target pod or the Sniper pod. HARM, or High-Speed Anti-Radiation Missile, is designed to locate and destroy an enemy's air defense radar equipment by honing onto the transmitter's emissions. Two notable features of the HARM are its high speed, giving the enemy little time to respond, and its ability to continue its attack even after the emitter had been closed down. The F-15 family's standard short-range AAM is the AIM-9 Sidewinder, with a range of just over 11 miles. The Sparrow missile has been replaced with the AIM-120 AMRAAM, the Advanced Medium-Range Air-to-Air Missile, which is radar-guided and in the current variant has a range of up to 100 miles and a speed in excess of Mach 4. The F-15 was also tested as a launcher for the ADSID, or Air Delivered Seismic Intrusion Detector, which buries itself in the ground to radio intruder reports. With the rear seater supervising Strike Eagle's advanced weapon system, the pilot is left free to fly the airplane and make tactical decisions on the basis of the data presented to him on his flat panel screens and on the wide-angle head-up display. Other weapons that can be carried by the F-15 include so-called dumb weapons, such as cluster bombs. Free-fall unitary bombs with or without a parachute retarder can also be dropped. Smart weapons such as laser-guided bombs can be launched, and, with the right data link system, optronically guided bombs. At the beginning of the 1990s, it was not uncommon to see the Eagle on deployment in the skies over friendly countries. In flight over Egypt, accompanied by a B-1B Lancer strategic bomber, created by Rockwell but now supported by Boeing, during a routine exercise, they could not have known that they would soon be back in action in the Middle East during the First Gulf War. In 1990, following the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, which triggered the First Gulf War, there were only 3 Saudi Arabian F-15 Eagle squadrons operational. In Operation Desert Shield, America immediately rushed F-15Cs and Ds of the 1st Tactical Fighter Wing to the Middle East to protect the Saudis from possible invasion.
gone to the central region of Saudi Arabia. We take our gas, and we're basically tied to nobody. We go straight up into Iraq and sweep the airfields, utilizing minimum communication so as to not reveal our position, and sweep for any fighter activity or helicopter activity for that matter. The emphasis primarily has been on the eastern border to prevent the Iraqis from escaping into Iran, but additionally we sweep west, north, and south as well. Today we started from the central, swept up toward Baghdad, hung a right to the east, looked at several airfields in the southeastern and eastern sector, ran the Iranian border, repeated that a couple of times, and then came back to Saudi Arabia to refuel. Now that we have our gas, we'll shortly be headed back up north to do the same thing one more time. It's been a great time. The air war is going real well. I'll be eager for the ground war to start and for this desert storm to be over.
In the theater, the U.S. Air Force F-15 Eagles were deployed to Tabuk, Al-Kharj, and Dhahran. Saudi F-15 Eagle units were based at Taif, Khamis Mashat, and Dhahran. The U.S. Air Force's F-15E Strike Eagles were deployed to Al-Kharj. With their advanced avionics and targeting systems, the Eagles were able to operate efficiently by day or night. Their data link systems allowed them to receive up-to-the-minute information about tactical conditions from aircraft such as the E-3 Sentry and the E-8 J-Stars, whose sensor systems provided information on air-to-air and air-to-surface targets. The stabilized optics of the targeting system allowed the F-15 crews to turn away or take evasive action after releasing their weapons, and yet guide these weapons into the target. Their cockpit recordings provided accurate information about the accuracy of the weapons, and also provided confirmation of a target's destruction. In the air-to-air combat role, the F-15 Eagle continues to be one of the United States' most versatile air superiority fighters. Currently, within the United States, there are a total of 15 Eagle Air Superiority Squadrons. The Air Force has 8 Eagle Squadrons. 2 are based in Alaska, 1 is based in Idaho, another in Virginia, and there are 4 air squadrons in Florida. The Air National Guard has 7 Eagle Squadrons. South Carolina has a single squadron. Missouri has 2 units, and there is a single squadron located in Montana. Finally, there are 2 Air National Guard squadrons based in Oregon.
The National Guard has 2 basic fighters, the F-16 and the F-15. They are starting to get now involved in the F-22, but they don't own an F-22 squadron. They don't have a squadron dedicated to themselves. And then they have just about everything else in the Air Force inventory, from the tanker transport to attack like the A-10 is. So here in the F-15 community, we're really pretty homogenous with the active duty. We are training to be able to replace an active duty pilot. So our goal is to have our tactics, our equipment really very similar, such that we could fill a role if they have a vacancy or they need us to help them out. It's a seamless transition. We jump in their foreship, and the communications, the tactics, and the equipment is all the same. So there's no limitations, despite the differences in active duty versus Air National Guard.
One of the most important peacetime tasks undertaken by the Air Superiority Eagle is the interception of Soviet warplanes close to or approaching the continental United States. A key site in this mission is Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska. This lies on one of the shortest routes that would be taken by Soviet or now Russian bombers approaching North America along the polar route from the northern part of Russia. The Eagles are always launched in pairs, and once airborne, are vectored precisely toward the position of any long-range bombers, such as the Tupolev Tu-95 Bear. The Bear has swept flying surfaces, but is powered by 4 very powerful turboprop engines, each driving a pair of contra-rotating propellers. Bears have almost jet-like performance, in combination with a very long range and the ability to lift a heavy warload. The Bear was manufactured in bomber and reconnaissance variants. During the Cold War between the West and the Soviet Union, both types were frequently encountered over the Arctic Ocean, Norwegian Sea, North Sea, and northern parts of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the thawing of relations between the Russian Federation and the West, these incursions ended. But after a lengthy interval, with the resurgence of Russian nationalism, their bombers are once again being met with increasing regularity. American fighters are launched to ensure the Russians that the United States is still on the alert and to monitor any electromagnetic emissions from the big bombers and reconnaissance aircraft. In turn, the Russians monitor all the U.S. emissions. Such is the importance of this sector of the North American Air Defense Network that the U.S. Air Force has already deployed 2 more squadrons, the 90th and 202nd, to Elmendorf. These additional units are equipped with the next-generation F-22A Raptor fighter, and the 4 squadrons will continue to maintain a constant watch over America's back door. In Europe, the single U.S. Air Force's Eagle air superiority asset is the 439th Squadron, the Grim Reapers, flying F-15Cs from Lakenheath in Great Britain. In the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, there are only 3 Eagle air superiority squadrons. The 44th and 67th Squadrons of the U.S. Air Force have their home on the southern Japanese island of Okinawa. Hawaii's 199th Air National Guard Squadron is based on Oahu. The 44th and 67th Squadrons are part of the 18th Wing of the U.S. Pacific Air Forces and are based at Kadena Air Base on Okinawa. They both fly the F-15C. Sometimes the squadrons deploy, on a temporary basis, to Osan Air Base in South Korea. These are a clear example of how the Eagle has become a ubiquitous warrior of the U.S. Air Force and the Air National Guard for domestic and worldwide deployment. Until these squadrons can field adequate numbers of the altogether more advanced F-22 Raptor and later the Lockheed F-35 Lightning II, the Eagle will continue as the mainstay of American tactical air superiority power. In addition to the existing F-15 air superiority squadrons in the U.S., the U.S. Air Force has 6 Strike Eagle squadrons based in the continental United States. The 389th and the 391st Squadrons are based in Idaho. The 333rd, 334th, 335th, and 336th Squadrons are based in North Carolina. Strike Eagle operations in the U.S. allow crews to develop and tune their tactical skills over areas of country similar to many of those over which combat operations may be needed. Though the F-15E Strike Eagle has shorter range than the F-15 Eagle air superiority models, it still retains the refueling receptacle and can therefore be refueled in the air from the U.S. Air Force's tanker fleet. With in-flight refueling, the Strike Eagle has the range and cruising speed to deploy to distant areas in a very short time when its services are required. Since the nozzle on the refueling boom is NATO standard, the aircraft can accept gas from a range of tankers of America's allies. In Europe, based alongside the F-15Cs of the 493rd Squadron of Lakenheath, are the U.S. Air Force's two Strike Eagle squadrons, the 492nd and 494th. From there, they can deploy rapidly to other European and also Middle Eastern bases when the situation demands. With its advanced avionics and the ability to carry podded navigational attack systems, the F-15E Strike Eagle is well suited to operations over areas such as Europe, where cloud and rain often make it impossible to operate under visual conditions. Aviano, in the northeastern part of Italy, is one of the bases to which U.S. Air Force F-15 fighters make occasional deployments. It was one of the bases from which warplanes of the Western powers mounted Operation Deny Flight. As the situation in the Balkans had deteriorated over many years, the United Nations mandated a no-fly zone over Bosnia and Herzegovina. In August 1993, after a UN Security Council resolution that banned all aircraft unless sanctioned by the UN, F-15Es of the 492nd and 494th Fighter Squadrons deployed to Aviano. By late in 1993, the situation had worsened, and NATO ordered a limited F-15E attack on Serbian targets in Croatia, targeting Ljubljana airfield. 8 F-15Es, armed with laser-guided bombs, were instructed to attack a SAM, surface-to-air missile site, as part of a 30-airplane strike package. The mission was canceled in mid-flight. During December of the same year, F-15Es were launched to destroy a pair of SAM sites, which had fired on British warplanes. In August 1995, the 90th Fighter Squadron joined the other two F-15E squadrons, which had already flown more than 2,500 sorties since the start of Deny Flight. On the 30th and 31st of August, the F-15Es used laser-guided bombs to attack Serbian armor and supplies around Sarajevo, and on September 5th, they dropped more laser-guided bombs. In 1999, Operation Allied Force was launched. After the start of a Serbian program of ethnic cleansing in Kosovo, another ex-Yugoslav area, 26 F-15Es of the U.S. Air Force's 492nd and 494th Fighter Squadrons, already available, concentrated the first strikes of the war against Serbian SAM sites, anti-aircraft batteries, and early warning radars. The two squadrons were the only F-15Es of the U.S. Air Force that undertook close air support missions, which was a novel concept for such warplanes in the late 1990s. Most missions lasted more than 7 hours, including 2 in-flight refuelings. Toward the end of the 21st century's first decade, the F-15C and D are being replaced in the U.S. by the F-22 Raptor. This is none too early, as there have been a number of accidents and problems with the structural integrity of older Eagle fighters. But the F-15E is scheduled to remain in service for some years to come as a result of its different tasking and the smaller number of hours on its airframe. On September 26, 2006, at the Air Force Association's Air and Space Conference and Technology Exposition, the U.S. Air Force revealed plans to upgrade 178 F-15C fighters. These would be equipped with the new APG-63 V3 AESA, or Active Electronically Scanned Array Radar. The Air Force also wants to upgrade other Eagles with the Joint Helmet-Mounted Cueing System for improved targeting of the fighter's guided weapons.
The helmet works magnetically. There's a magnetic field developed in the cockpit, and so wherever I turn with my head and helmet, the weapons systems are slaving to that line of sight, and so it allows millisecond shots off. If you do pick up a hostile aircraft within range of your weapons, you just basically look and shoot with this system.
The U.S. Air Force subsequently signed a contract with Boeing for the upgrade of its F-15Cs with the new radar, for redelivery starting in 2009. The Air Force will therefore retain 178 F-15Cs, as well as the 224 surviving F-15Es in service beyond the year 2025. What would have been the consequence if the F-15's development program had ended in failure and the type had been dropped from American military planning? The only viable alternative would have been the F-16 Fighting Falcon, designed and initially manufactured by General Dynamics and now by Lockheed Martin. The F-16 entered service in 1978 and is still in development as well as production for export sale. Smaller and lighter than the F-15 and powered by a single turbofan engine, the F-16 was conceived as a lightweight air combat fighter, although its capabilities have been considerably expanded from its initial role to make the Fighting Falcon a true multi-role fighter. This airplane could have been pressed into service as an alternative to the Eagle, but would not have offered the same capabilities in the roles in which the Eagle excels. And while the F-16 had a long ferry range, with maximum external fuel and no armament, its combat radius, especially in the attack role, is only about half of that of the F-15E. With 6,000 pounds of bombs, this radius is just 340 miles. So the F-16 could never have been an adequate alternative to the F-15. Although being somewhat cheaper to build and operate, it could have been procured in still larger numbers. The F-15 Eagle has been one of the most important Western fighters since the Second World War, and its operational career will certainly exceed an unprecedented 50 years. It has been the backbone of the United States Air Force's air superiority capability and remains, even now, 30 years after its debut, a formidable warplane. The F-15 Eagle is indeed a mighty predator and a legendary bird of prey.